Can I tell you a secret? In the past, I've shown you how I've needle felted all these little figures and the end results, but it's kind of a lie. Sometimes I skipped over the parts where I went wrong and redid something. But you might have made these mistakes as they're common problems that you've probably experienced. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where I went wrong when needle felting Joy, the tricks you can use to avoid the mistakes I made, and how you can rectify mistakes if you do make them. And later, I'll show you how my poor needle felted Joy was nearly a complete disaster. So let's get started. So a few weeks ago I showed you how I started by drawing Joy from inside out so that I have a life-size image to work from, and how I created a simple armature covering the body with core wool and making the arms out of some peach wool.
Okay, I know Joy's tall, but she's not that tall.
Well, yes, but I've left the pipe cleaner legs long on purpose, but I'll come on to where I went wrong with this later. Once I'd used bright green wool to make the top of her dress, it was time to make her skirt. This is where I made my first mistake. I thought, oh, it'll be fine, I'll just guess the shape I need. I made the skirt for disgust. How hard can it be, right? Wrong. When I wrapped it around her, the back was a pointed shape and it wasn't full enough. So I had to add more wool to make it more flared, make it a bit shorter, but I ended up spending so much time just in the shape. It would have been a lot quicker to have cut out a shape in paper first, like I have done in previous projects. Any paper will do, and you can easily adjust the paper pattern and draw around the pattern on some wool so that you can needle felt it into the right shape the first time. If you like having patterns to follow, I have a link in the description to my full instructions and patterns to make either of these cute doggies. It also includes 15 of my best tips on needle felting to help you with lots of different needle felting techniques. Once I'd finally finished the skirt, I was so pleased that I got it the right shape that I merrily attached it to the body, but then soon realised I'd made another mistake. I needed to decorate Joy's dress with a delicate pattern, which involved needle felting very fine thin lines of blue wool onto the dress. I'll show you how I needle felt fine lines later when I felt the eyes, but felting this pattern was relatively straightforward on the area above her waist. However, felting it onto the skirt now that it was attached was going to be more tricky. I had to come up with a way of supporting the skirt while I felted these little blue lines onto the dress. I found that by putting a small dishwashing sponge underneath the skirt, I just about managed to felt these blue marks on, but it was very fiddly. So lesson learnt, add the decoration before attaching. In a moment we'll get onto the head, but first I'd made holes in the base and threaded the pipe cleaners through. Then I rolled up 2 pieces of peach wool and felted 2 little feet. Now for the head. Of course I took my own advice and started with less wool than I thought I needed. No. Hang on a minute. No, I completely forgot to do this and rolled up a big slab of core wool and got stuck in. So it ended up looking a bit too big. But don't worry, you can make it smaller by stabbing it more. So I spent a lot more time stabbing it until it was felted extremely firmly and about the right size. It would have been a lot quicker to start smaller and gradually add wool to build up the size. And if you think this took a while, wait till I get to the hair. I then used a strip of paper to measure the image of Joy. I marked out and felted an indent for where the eyes will go. The next mistake isn't one I made while felting Joy, but I realised I made when making Disgust. One regret is that Disgust's head is very round and dips away under her mouth, so I was determined to create a chin for Joy. I took a small piece of core wool, rolled it up into a small sausage, and attached it across the bottom of her face to create a chin shape. The chin also demonstrates a really important point that I want to make in this video, that throughout the process I'm constantly studying the shape and adding more wool to change it. Later on, even after I'd coated the head in peach wool, I realised that she is still lacking in the chin department, but it's not too late, so I rolled up some peach wool in the same way and felted it to the bottom of her head, as well as adding a bit of peach wool to shape her nose. So please don't forget how forgiving needle felting is. You can correct your mistakes really easily. Now it was time to tackle probably the most important part, the eyes. I started filling the indent for the eyes with white wool, but realised they looked a bit small. Now, I hadn't drawn the eyes the actual size and how I wanted them to look. The drawing was also a helpful reference when it came to positioning the iris and the pupils, as I'll show you in a moment. But first, I filled the whites of the eyes with more white wool, and then to needle felt a very fine line around the outside of the eye, I took a small amount of black tops wool, twisted it together into a long thread, laid it across the edge of one eye, and with a fine needle I stabbed it in place. Then twisting as you go along, keep adjusting, making sure the fine twisted wool is following the outline of the eye. Once you're back to the start, trim the ends and tidy it up. Now we're at a crucial part, the iris or coloured part of the eye. But before I get into how I did the iris, please could you do me a favour and click the like button? By doing this, you'll also help other needle felters to see this video. So a mistake I made with Sadness's eyes was I used just one shade of blue wool for her iris. They were okay, but I wanted to make Joy's even better. If you look closely at the image of Joy, you can see that she has at least 3 different shades of blue within her iris. So I felted around the outer edge of the iris with a dark blue, then filled the middle with a rolled up circle of mid blue. Then if you look very carefully at the bottom right section of the iris, it looks lighter. So I attached a very small amount of lighter blue wool just at the bottom right hand corner of the iris. This didn't show up as much as I thought it would, so I also added some white wool in the same way. To make sure I got 2 equally sized pupils, I got 2 small pieces of black wool and rolled them into a ball, feeling if they were the same size. Then attached each piece in the centre of the iris. All that remained to do was the same with 2 tiny amounts of white wool to create this tiny dot of highlight in the top left of the eye. I was pleased with how Joy's eyes turned out. They seemed much more alive than Sadness's, but a mistake I'll come to in a moment nearly meant scrapping the whole thing. But first it was time to tackle Joy's hair. I had thought about doing her hair in a similar way to Sadness's, which I felted by attaching top's wool in the same way you would attach fur to an animal. However, looking at images of Joy, her hair is more sculptured, so I decided to use a different technique.
Did you do my hair wrong?
No, Sadness, I don't think so. You like your hair, don't you?
It's a bit messy.
Yeah, it does get a bit messy, doesn't it? Which is part of the reason why I decided to sculpt Joy's hair a bit more, so that it was less high maintenance. I also blended 2 shades of blue together to give it a bit more depth and make it slightly lighter than Sadness's. I then took the end of the piece and twisted it together with my fingers to create a triangular-shaped piece of hair that comes to a point, and then stabbed it for a short while, and using 2 rulers to hold it while I shaped it into a curl of hair. I always left the wide end unfelted so that it would be easy to attach, but I'll show you in a moment how it also came in handy for a tuft of hair that sticks up. Looking at Joy's hair, she has lots of these, so quite a while later I had needle felted several of these in various sizes. It was when it came to attaching these pieces that I made yet another error. I started attaching the pieces from right to left, but this meant that when I got to the centre I realised the hair pieces were layered on top of each other the wrong way. So fortunately I was able to peel these pieces off, just leaving the one piece on the side and start over.
Hey, what have you done to Joy? Why has she only got one eyebrow?
Yeah, don't worry, she'll look better soon. And there's only one eyebrow that shows, the other one is hidden under her hair. Anyway, I started attaching the pieces from the left of her fringe, working to the right, making sure I kept referring to the image before attaching the other pieces around the side and the back of her head. I also noticed there's a second layer of clumps of hair nearer the crown of her head, so I made yet more pieces and felted them on the top. I hope hearing about the mistakes I made is reassuring, so that when your item isn't turning out quite how you'd like, you have the confidence to persevere and try to rectify it. As I was saying earlier, the tuft of hair on top of her head was created from some of the unfelted ends of the pieces, but I wasn't sure how I was going to needle felt this fuzzy mess into what looks like more spikes. So I tried splitting some of the wool and twisting it together and then stabbing it into a spike, but this wasn't very easy. I also tried using 2 rulers to help shape them. This was really fiddly and each piece wasn't coming to a point as I'd hoped they would, so I got a tiny blob of hair gel and put a bit on each spike of hair and twisted them into a shape. This made the shape of them look a lot more defined and spiky. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think of the hairstyle I've given Joy. Do you like it? Or do you prefer Sadness's hair? Or perhaps you'd like to share how you managed to recover from a felting disaster. So now all I have to do is attach her head to her body. How hard can that be, right? Well, I have to confess, this next mistake nearly ruined the whole project. After I'd made a hole in her head and stuck her head onto the pipe cleaner, a major problem became apparent. Yes, Joy became a limbo dancer. I'd proper mucked up. Previously, when I've made an armature with these pipe cleaners, I'd gone down the leg and back up, so there was double the strength. But for this figure, where I've only used a single piece, I should have twisted 2 together, or used a firmer pipe cleaner or a thicker wire. But how to rectify it without starting over? Well, I took inspiration from how I'd made Disgust stand on a base. I got some firmer garden wire, made a hoop shape, and wrapped it around her waist underneath her skirt. Then took it down the back of one leg and down into the base. Then to really really support her back, I used the awl to make a hole all the way up to her neck and threaded another piece of wire up her back, down her other leg and into the base. To hide the wire at the back of her legs, I felted some more peach wool over the wire, making her legs slightly wider, but at least she's able to stand now. Phew. So if you found this helpful and you'd like to hear some more needle felting tricks that I wish I knew when I started needle felting, in this video I show you 10 ways you can improve everything from shaping to inserting plastic eyes in a special way that makes them look amazing. Thank you so much for watching.